and welcome to Richmond Kickers Weekly. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who will tell us later was it a push or not. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Oh boy, I didn't realize I'd signed up for that one. I better do some research real fast while we record the show.
Extra referee. We rewatched it.
Yeah.
We rewatched it.
Also, hello.
Hello to
Forgot
you.
that part. I panicked
too.
in the beginning.
Well, you weren't saying hello to me on Saturday at City Stadium. Yeah.
Mm-mm. I was out of town. I was in upstate New York.
Yes.
But I did touch base with you. I checked in to see how the Kickers were doing. And I was a little bit nervous because we saw some positive signs in the second half last week. I was hoping we would see a stronger result. And I was really nervous that you were going to text me like it was 5-0. And then we would have some problems, especially since Tormenta were on a very good run of form.
Yep.
I think top of the table heading into this one.
They played a game more than most people, but they won both of them. So, yeah.
Hey, you got to win the games, you got to play the games.
Yeah.
So I was nervous, so you texted me back 0-0, and I said, good result, and you said, I think so. So that's probably why we're here now to break it down.
I stand by it.
Okay, you stand by that you think it was a good result?
I think it was a good performance, a much better performance. We saw a lot more of what David Bueller wants the Kickers to do.
I would agree
Obviously, it
with
would be better if the ball was in the back of the net and
I would also agree with that.
The Kickers had won the game.
Wait, is that important?
It is it's one of the key soccer things. But yeah, the performance and the patterns of play.
Daryl Grove, on record, scoring goals, one of the key soccer things.
Hey, can't argue with it, right? Yeah, we saw much more like, I think, the Kickers' personality, the Kickers' style of play, still without the end product. Yeah. But much more to be positive about. And I think we'll get into more specifics of what we're talking about in a second.
And I think, once again, the satellite commentator for this game did a good job of pointing out that this is a very new squad. They only had 5 players from last season, and a lot of those players were brought in very late. And so I do think that's why we were maybe a little bit more forgiving of that first half last week, but why we had high expectations for this second week. Yeah. And I do think that you're absolutely right, that we saw positive progression, which is what you want to see in a relatively new coach in his first full season with a very new squad.
He's under 40. He could be in Style Weekly's top 40 under 40 for the final time this year.
And probably should be.
Can we?
I would add.
Let's vote for him. Let's nominate him.
Let's get that petition going.
So what did you see that you liked?
I'm also going to add that you and I have never appeared in that magazine, so maybe we should get that petition going as well.
I have just a few months left.
I really liked I believe in you. Yeah. I really enjoyed for lack of a better term, the fluidity of Richmond Kickers' shape. I saw players swapping positions on occasion. I saw them swapping back, which is equally important. Yeah. But then I saw, in one 30-second sequence inside the first 20 minutes, it looked like the Kickers. Now, formation is fluid always.
What do you mean it looked like the Kickers?
It looked like the Kickers went from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3.
I should let you finish your sentences, right?
Ideally. A 4-2-3-1 to a 4... I like that you interrupted to say you weren't going to interrupt anymore.
Irony. Alanis Morissette would have enjoyed that part.
She would. Except I'm not sure she actually knows what irony is. But in one sequence, they went from looking like they were in a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, that's how they started for sure.
To a 4-3-3, and then very quickly to a 4-2-4 when they were kind of stepping forward and being a bit more aggressive. And I think that's what David Buller wants to see is more aggressive pressure and players stepping to try to win that ball and cause problems for the opposition.
Yep. I also saw Boateng, who started on the right, and Jackson, centre forward number 9, switching positions quite effectively, because as soon as they did it around the 20th minute, Boateng had 2 chances immediately, right? With 2 sort of, what first was like a direct ball in the channel that he ran onto, I think it was from Akwai. The second one was a direct ball again into the channel, I think from midfield on the left side. So I think maybe Boateng, that was like an in-game switch, maybe Boateng's a bit more mobile maybe than Jackson. I think because we think of Jackson with the nice little chip for the Maxi Rodriguez goal last week. I think of him as maybe more of a more deft, delicate type player as opposed to a sort of running the channels type guy. Yeah. So I think I like that switch from Bulow, or we don't know, from the players maybe they decided. I don't know which way around it was.
I guess we'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's listening and he can confirm one way or the other. I'm expecting that text, David. Let's make it happen. And also, I'm not sure if we're on first name basis, but I guess we are right now.
I'm going to call him Coach Bulow.
All right, that's
Respect.
Fair. Sir.
Respect.
Sir. Mr. Coach Bulow, sir.
Let's talk about what else the Kickers changed between this week and last week. We identified... we maybe thought Connor Shinovsky was at fault for the first Lansing goal last week because I think worried about pace, he had dropped off deep against Celso and that essentially cost the Kickers.
Yes.
And then I noticed that this week it was a starting back four, Akwai and Megales were the two centre-backs. Megales covers ground a bit more quickly. Also, my pet project, he's left-footed and he played left centre-back.
I know
and Akwai's right-footed and played right centre-back. It looked a lot more balanced to me.
I did to me as well. I think there is an argument to be made that maybe Connor Shinovsky a little bit hard done by the fact that it was week 1 and that there was a lot of inexperience around him.
Sure, yeah.
And so I think it was a little bit of putting out fires. And so it is sometimes the case, as we've talked about on the Total Soccer Show before, that if you're that last defender making the play, sometimes you're the one who gets posterized. You're the closest to the ball, so you get blamed, even if you're the one who slid across 20 yards to make a play. Not necessarily saying that was Connor Shinovsky every single time, but I do think that some of the deficiencies in the system can't then be blamed on one player when they make an obvious error.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But I'm absolutely with you, with that said, that they did look much more solid. I think a big part of that, however, was that there wasn't nearly as much pressure when they would get the ball, especially in the center back, especially with the goalkeeper, Akira Fitzgerald. It felt like they had more time. And so I was pleasantly surprised to see the distribution, especially from the goalkeeper, that like on a couple different occasions, especially in the first half, I saw him sort of hit these chipped, almost moonball passes or long balls out into the channels. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's at about, nope, that's inbounds perfectly. And the distribution was definitely better than it was in week 1.
So it's worth pointing out, last week Lansing came and not exactly like high pressed, but they did that blockade, right, where the Kickers defenders, when they had the ball, couldn't find paths into midfield because Lansing did a great job blocking it off. Tormenta came and essentially sat in a 5-4-1 and were ready to counter-attack. Right? And I actually think, again, I think it's important to have pace at centre-back when the other team's trying to counter-attack because it's much less likely to happen. I think it's not a coincidence. Akwai made the USL Team of the Week, USL League One Team of the Week. I'm not sure how you folks, we haven't really talked about it, but I was really impressed. He was sort of anytime that Tormenta tried to break, Akwai was really willing to step out, win it, be there first, and was really good with the ball. So, yeah, I really enjoyed his performance.
I did too, and I would add one more element to that, which is that I felt like of the two fullbacks, I saw Lockerbie really willing to get forward, especially in the first half. And then I would see Akwai kind of slide over and cover that side a bit more, cover that channel, so that there wasn't nearly as much exposure, so that if Lockerbie then did get caught out, if he was out of position, he wasn't turning around and there were 80 yards of space behind him with no one there to defend. So I think Akwai did a good job of putting out potential fires before they even... He put out the smoke before the fire even started.
Smoke before there was even a fire, they say there's no smoke without fire, but not when Akwai's involved.
And then I think if we're sticking with positives, I also continued to enjoy what I saw from Joe Gallardo. There were some moments where I didn't enjoy his defensive work as much, but it's also worth
not for lack of trying, right? It's more that just I don't think he's fully got the physical presence to make an impact when he tries to defend.
He's also playing as a number 10 occasionally as a second striker, so then it's maybe unfair to just to then look at his performance of he didn't track back and make the tackle as a number 6. Well, he's not a number 6. What I did think was interesting is he is very good, and it's a thing I want to keep an eye on. Not quite in the Hugh Roberts thumbs up category, but in the at least once a game now. It's been 2 games in a row. I've seen Joe Gallardo do the out of nowhere poke tackle where the opposition midfielder,
the Paxton Pomykal is what I call it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I call it.
That's fine with me. But it's basically the opposition midfielder has the ball, and then Gallardo will kind of track back. And I feel like it's he goes into stealth mode, and he'll just do a little toe poke around the player and pokes that ball away. And I like that little bit of defensive work because I think that maybe is more suited to what he is going to be able to offer. It is that sort of dropping in from a number 10, maybe helping win the ball back, but not necessarily dropping all the way back and making slide tackles and making physical challenges.
Well, I liked what Gallardo did with the ball in attack. I'm going to say the Kickers, the 2 best chances outside of those 2 Boateng chances around the 22nd minute or so came from passes into Joe Gallardo and Joe Gallardo setting someone free.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true. And it's not just turning and playing the ball forward, which is a thing we really wanted to see against Lansing that we didn't feel like we saw enough of, was midfielders who were willing to turn and go at the defense. But it's then playing very clever balls. I think for the Lockerbie one in the second half, it's a kind of lifted pass between 2 defenders that Lockerbie is able to run onto, gets a touch, maybe a slightly heavy touch, which is why he has to toe poke it with the second one. But it was
Jackson was waiting for it at the far post. I saw him gesturing hey, that should have been a square ball.
I would have enjoyed this pass, I think is what he said, slightly more emphatically.
I would have enjoyed a pass.
But it's that sort of... It was the turn, going at the defense, and then making a smart, very technical pass to cause problems for the defense. That's what we expected to see from Joe Gallardo. We didn't see it as much in the first game. We saw it more in this game. I hope we see more of it going forward as well.
Because he also did it for a Bolduc chance in, what did you say, the 15th minute?
Sorry, 15th.
You texted me earlier, hey, get a look at this. On that Lockerbie chance, I really enjoyed Lockerbie's underlapping run. Because a lot of the time, a right back will pass the ball into an attacking midfielder and then either kind of stand there or just jog out wide. side. But what Lockerbie did that I really liked was he underlapped Boateng, which I think came as a huge surprise to the Tormenta back five. And so that's why they didn't expect him to appear in that channel, right? Which is why Gallardo's able to play that ball into him. But after he doesn't square it and he pokes at the keeper and it pops loose, there is a moment that was referenced in the opening audio to this show. I think it's Boateng goes for the follow-up, and I can't tell, does he swing and a miss, or does he swing and a miss because he's pushed? Was it a push in the back, as that kid says?
So it's really, really tough. I mean, children don't lie. We know that, except they do all the time.
They say the darndest things.
They also do that. I would say this, though. It's very difficult to see from the replay, and especially from the slightly closer replay. But I'm inclined to say it was a push. And I don't think that's just hometown bias. I think because the mechanics of that swing from Boateng are so strange. Again, we think it's Boateng. But it's just such a weird process, the way he swings at it, that it doesn't look the way you would normally strike a ball. And especially, even if you mishit it, we've seen players mishit, but sort of just the way his body is suddenly not in the shape it needs to be to make contact. I do think maybe there's a little bit of contact. Not necessarily enough to give away a penalty, or to award a penalty rather, but I do think there's some level of contact there that definitely caused problems.
Okay, that's fair. So we're saying not a penalty. I mean, it wasn't a penalty. But
it wasn't given. Yeah. And the referee had a good view of it, so I'm going to say maybe it wasn't enough contact to justify a penalty.
Because you can touch someone on the back.
You can.
Right?
You can.
I think maybe that's more like what happened.
Yeah, and it's like, it is a weird line, though, right? Because you can touch them, you can make contact, but then if you don't make contact and just scream like, hey, that's not allowed either. So I don't really know where that line is. But the other reason why I think it's probably in the end not a penalty is because referee has a good view of it, and it's right in front of the Red Army. And if there's a situation when maybe the official is going to think, yeah, it probably is a penalty, it's right in front of the Red Army. So that wasn't given, to me, says, yeah, there's a little bit of contact, but probably not enough.
Yeah.
It still was enough to mess up the mechanics, which maybe you could argue then should have been a penalty, but I think for me, I get why it wasn't given.
Got it. Okay, we've talked a lot about what we liked about the Kickers. Fact is, they did not win this game at home.
This is true.
Why didn't they win this game at home?
I would say finishing was a very big part of it. There was much more offensive connection. I would say still not as much as I would like to see.
Yeah.
But I did think we saw, again, going back to my initial point of the fluidity of the attack, where you'd see suddenly Boateng coming inside and creating numerical problems in the middle.
Yep.
With them.
Gallardo getting on the ball.
Yeah, Gallardo getting on the ball, but then Lockerbie getting forward as well.
Yep.
Again, with Akwai sliding over. So suddenly you had 4 and 5 players in the attacking third, the defensive third for Tormenta. But I think that was something we didn't see against Lansing that we did see in this one. So there was more bodies there. There was more connectivity, but there wasn't that final product.
Yep.
The few times they did, going back to that Bolduc chance that you just talked about in the 15th, it's great interplay from Boateng to Gallardo. It's a great ball in for Bolduc, and then he kind of lashes at it and knocks it over. That's one where I think maybe if it's a little bit calmer, if it's not quite as nervy of a moment, if the Kickers are already ahead 1 or 2, that shot is definitely on frame, if not in the back of the net.
Okay, so I know you had a conversation with Coach Bulow about, and he mentioned the finishing. Was what he told you about finishing, was that on the record or off the record?
I believe it was off the record. Or no, on the record.
On the record.
Yes,
on the record, meaning we
yes,
can put it here. We can put it on vinyl, right?
We can. And he said he doesn't like any. No, I'm kidding. He said basically, yes, we can put it on vinyl. That it's a matter of how you go about addressing that issue is the conundrum, and that's what I was asking about. Is it just more do you do finishing drills in practice? Is it dribble through the cones and then have a shot from a tight angle? And his contention was that doesn't really help you because you're not going to get a chance. Yeah, and we tell the guys that we coach this that how often do we see them warm up by putting the ball on the top of the 18, backing up, and then hitting a dead ball?
Yeah,
you're usually not going to get that chance in a game unless you're hitting a free
kick. You're never getting that chance. And even if you do, there's a wall and there's all sorts of
there you go.
That's
what I'm saying. Yeah, and so I think to extend that further, his point was how often are you just dribbling towards the top of the box unmarked without any pressure and then getting a shot off? So even sort of mobility drills where you're then shooting don't really help you as much as in-game, in practice, in scrimmage situations that kind of give you the simulation of that moment so that on the fly you're thinking, I've got this defender coming over, the goalkeeper's coming out. It's a realistic game scenario that then you can work within. Okay,
and there's also, I don't know what the timeline is, but there's Chin, the striker, to come back as well. So maybe we have to put some hopes on the chin.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder, though, we didn't talk about this, but I do often wonder when you've got a player coming back, if that helps your other players like sort of think like, okay, this is my opportunity to cement my status to help me get to that next level.
Yeah.
Or is it like every time they miss a chance or don't take a chance as cleanly as they would like or aren't given the ball at the back post, is Jackson thinking, well, that was my chance, and now like that frustration builds and that nervousness mounts. And I think, again, that's where you kind of have to go back to training and practice and getting people into those rhythms where it's not I missed a chance and now my life is over. It's I didn't miss a chance, hopefully, but if I do, okay, well, I'm going to get the next one. And you've got to kind of pick your head up from that missed opportunity.
We did see, not last season, but the season before, I believe it was Grant, the striker, who had a couple of really bad misses, then a whiff where he missed the ball, and you could really see his confidence plummet throughout the season. Right, we're nowhere near that level. Right, we're nowhere near that level right now.
I think it was 2 seasons ago.
Okay,
but yes, I take your point that Anthony Grant. It really was just a complete quicksand game that spread into like a series of quicksand.
I really
games.
Felt for him because I understand how that happens.
Yeah. And I had a conversation with. I'm going to tease it, an AS Roma Academy player that will be on, I think by the time people hear this, it will be on tomorrow's Total Soccer show, the Thursday, might be the Friday show. We haven't decided yet. But he talked about how I had this idea that going back to like my youth days of if you have a really bad game, if everybody's kind of lethargic or not completing passes, there's that air of the coach being like, you all are going to run for this. Like you all are running shuttles because we looked lethargic. We're going to do all these like hardcore intensity drills because we've got to get better. And I think in a professional setting, it's more about like, no, there's nothing that can be done about that last game, but we got to improve our overall camaraderie and our chemistry and our like team happiness. And I think that's what they're probably working on is how do you sort of improve morale after a game where you probably should have won, you had the better chances, you had more opportunities. So how do you make sure that you learn from that in a positive way so that everybody looks forward to the next game as opposed to hopes there isn't another quicksand game?
Okay, before we talk about looking forward to the next game and maybe a US Open Cup game, there is one defensive element the Kickers have added on set pieces. We talked last week about defending set pieces and maybe we were a little concerned about the zonal marking and that ball that went to the back post for one of the Lansing goals. This week, when Tormenta had a free kick, the Red Army helped out. Have a listen to what they did when Dennis stepped up to take a free kick.
So would your contention be that the chanting and them saying that you're not going to make it was all it took for him to maybe just hit it 2 inches too low?
Yeah, definitely.
I think it was too high. I forget what it was.
The because you suck part is what really undermined his confidence.
I mean, you're not wrong that like you can the opposition fans if you're Tormenta can get in your head. I know Kikaru tries to get into the substitutes' heads. He always offers them hugs.
Yeah,
they don't usually take him up on it.
Nope, they didn't this time either. Yeah,
I don't get it. I actually do get it.
I would hug the roof.
I've thought about this. I genuinely put a lot of thought into this about why you wouldn't. And I do think that if you're a player who's on the bench, who's trying to prove that you kind of have the laser sharp focus to come in and be an impact player, and maybe you should be a starter, if that coach looks over at you in that moment to think like, who do I need? Who do I need? Exactly. It's like, well, he is not sharp. He is not really focused on this game. I don't want to call him in.
Well, here's what you do. Obviously, you wait till the coach is definitely distracted, and then you really quickly hug the roo, and then you go back to warming up.
Or you wait till the 3 subs have happened. That's also fine. Then you're definitely not going in. So you may as well hug him. Yeah, that's what I think. But yeah, credit to the Red Army for the creative chance to potentially put off Dennis, who didn't use the Dennis system, I'm guessing.
Also, hopefully not.
Yeah.
It's still a good save from Akira Fitzgerald. I think he gets a hand to it. It's definitely a corner kick, right? So he gets a hand to it to, I believe, tip it onto the bar. Yeah, credit.
That's what it looked like to me, yeah.
Yeah, credit to Akira Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I mean, and in the end, credit to the Kickers for the shutout, which is, even if you haven't scored the goals, a point is good. I think whoever does the USL rankings had the Kickers staying closer to the bottom of the table, even though they picked up the point because 2 games at home. But I do think to respond from going 3-0 down in the first, 47 minutes of the first game, to keep a clean sheet, to look like a much more organized defense, to look like you're capable of playing out of the back as opposed to maybe not capable, which is what we thought after the first game. Those are all big positives.
Well, we're going to get a rerun of that first game next week. Kickers are away. They're going to visit the Mitt. They're going to Michigan to play Lansing United. It's Saturday. I mean, I visit the Mitt a lot, right? Saturday, April 13th, Richmond are away to Lansing. 7 o'clock kickoff. I don't know if that's Eastern. Michigan is still Eastern time, right? You don't get Central till Illinois. Yeah, 7.
I don't know these things.
7 o'clock Eastern. Obviously, you can watch it on ESPN+. So the big news is Lansing are going to be missing 3 players.
All right.
So Robinson Mushabone, do you remember him?
Yep.
Who caused all kinds of trouble.
Scored a goal.
Scored the first goal against the Kickers this season. And Ricardo Perez, both suspended. I think they both picked up 2 bookings and a red card, so they both got a 1-match suspension. They won't play the Kickers. And then, more controversially, Ricky Lopez-Espin has been banned 3 games for using what the USL call foul and abusive language against an opposition fan when they got into it. From what I've read, it was a homophobic slur.
Yes.
Yeah, so he says, I'm not that type of guy and all that, but he definitely did that. I do want to credit Lansing and the USL for coming down on it real fast. They were pretty quick about 3-match ban, don't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so, because I understand why he would say he's not that type of guy, but we talked about this off air yesterday that, like, if we've been in like contentious moments, I would say me more so than you generally on the field. If you're getting into it, that has never been a thing like a thing I have gone to in the heat of the moment.
Yes.
So I think if it is like a thing that you rely on or a thing that instantly comes to your mind, maybe it's worth maybe taking some time to think about. Potentially take 3 games. For example, and think about why that was a thing that so readily came to your mind.
Yep. So hopefully Ricky Lopez-Espin can learn from this experience. How about that?
Yes.
In the short term, it means that Lansing were missing 3 starters for the Kickers' visit. The big thing for me is what the Kickers do, because the Lansing blockade, the sort of high-ish pressure that stopped them playing out the back, was a real problem for the Kickers. Does Coach David Bulow double down and say, all right, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it better? Or does he mix it up a little bit?
I think, okay, this is...
You haven't talked to me about this, have you?
I have not, no, but my sort of cop-out answer, but I mean this sincerely, is that it can be either one, but it has to be either one 100%. Because we've both been in games when we thought, like, oh, this team's going to only have 10 players to start the game, or, oh, their best player's missing. And as soon as you're thinking like that, you're not as mentally prepared, you're not as sharp. And so if the Kickers are thinking, oh, they're missing these 3 players, we'll be able to do it this time, and that's sort of what you're relying on, that's not really preparing. And so if the Lansing reserves are trying to prove themselves that they should be starters, then they might come out and be even more aggressive, and then you're really in trouble.
Yeah.
So if the Kickers do try to play out of the back against a higher press, it has to be a thing that they're 100% committed to and 100% have worked on over the last 2 weeks to be ready for that. If they don't, I think that's an equally fine approach. It just means that, again, we just don't want it to be an on-the-fly 15 minutes before kickoff, hey, never mind, we're kicking it long into the channels and hoping something happens.
So what I did, like, actually, against Tormenta, it wasn't just all slow build-up. There was the 2 Boateng chances I talked about were the Kickers just saw an opportunity, someone running in behind, and did hit the channel. I quite like that they mix it up a little bit. So maybe that's the way, like, dedicate to the slow build-up, but always have them on their toes, knowing that sort of direct ball over the top is a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's probably the better of the answers, and that's where I would say I would prefer to see them stick with it. I would rather see them try to build out of the back and just do it better, basically. Do it faster. Because I think that's, like, put it this way, like, there's a reason why Pep Guardiola stuck with that. Even when opposition teams were standing on the 18 waiting for that goal kick to go short, they still did it. And the reason
Bravo was like, please don't make me do it.
Exactly, I know. But the reason why it can look like lunacy, and if it doesn't work, it will be called, like, what is this person doing? They're crazy. They're a lunatic. But if it does, it means that the players are responding and getting better and better and better at it. And so I would say that extends all the way through the field, that if the Kickers get better at playing quickly out of the back and having more precise passes, that probably plays into they have more precise, quick counterattacks and quick attacks to the middle, and that probably then leads to faster decision-making in front of goal and more technical precision in front of goal as well.
I love your optimism. I hope we see it on ESPN Plus.
I hope so too.
This coming Saturday. If you want to see highlights of the game we just talked about, the Tormenta game, link will be in the show notes. There's always like 2-minute highlights of every USL League One game. Final thing I want to mention, Taylor, is this morning while you were coaching, the US Open Cup first round draw happened.
Oh boy.
The Kickers have drawn Virginia United, which is an amateur team, which in my very brief research, I think they're an amateur team from a Hispanic league. It's called the Associación Nacional Football en USA. They beat a UPSL team. UPSL, the league the Bug Eaters were in. Remember the Bug Eaters over in Nebraska? So we have no idea if this team's any good or not. But Kickers' past experience or recent experience of like losing to Christos in the first round, I'm really hoping that the Kickers send a full team out and redress the balance a little bit.
Let's just assume they're good and plan accordingly.
There
How
we
about
go.
that?
Yes, there we go. There we go. So that game is going to be tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, May 7th, US Open Cup. Richmond Kickers against Virginia United.
All right, and the game this weekend?
That's going to be on ESPN Plus as well. Do you know the US Open Cup? Every game's on ESPN Plus.
I did know that.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about it.
The game this weekend is April 13th. Lansing at home. Richmond Kickers are visiting the Mitt. 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff.
But that game definitely is not on ESPN Plus, right?
That game is definitely on ESPN Plus.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it
is.
All right, Taylor.
I'm going to say one more thing before we go. That is a pretty amazing feature. Like, it's easy to get frustrated with streaming services, and with the variety of streaming services, that means you end up spending a lot of money generally. But it is pretty cool to be able to go in there and see USL League One, USL Championship, MLS, lots of different full match replays.
Sure, yeah.
In a way that, but just with these lower leagues, like lower divisions, it gives more visibility to these teams, and honestly, it gives more legitimacy to these organizations.
Absolutely.
But now, if you're a player who's contemplating, should I go pro? Should I go to college? Should I just get a 40-hour-a-week job? If suddenly you know, oh, my games are there, I can watch these guys play, it gives it that much more authenticity, and I think continues to, or makes people want to continue to play.
Speaking of authenticity, let's have the Red Army play us out once again.